Yeah, well, perhaps if you could just run through these disputed claims then. We've got your salary from Skyward, which was one of the subsidiaries, various expense claims, and the Australia trip. Just perhaps you can run through what these were.
Happy to. First of all, taking them in the order that you mentioned, the Skyward payments.
Yeah.
I was taken on a 5-year contract by the MEA to oversee the completion of new infrastructure, to bring natural gas to the island, to connect with the mainland, the largest, the longest subsea interconnector cable in the world, was then, still is now. So major contracting and this type of business has been my career. And about 2 years into that contract, busy with doing other things, the DTI asked the MEA to take back the cable that they were renting and to develop a commercial application for the cable. And the board asked me would I do it, and I said I would, but it would take considerable more time than I've been putting in, as it were, and effort, and on my part there are things I would have to study and learn and come up to speed with. And it was agreed that I would be compensated for this extra work. So I took on the extra work, and I was compensated for it. Now, and that was all fully approved. The corporate governance is in place. KPMG had looked at that. They'd audited the trail of funds, and at least twice, I would assume now. And that was done quite properly. Now, in hindsight, the new board of the MEA decided that they didn't think that was right, so they asked for that money back. My counsel, my QC, and my instructing solicitor advised me that that was fully defendable, and it would be most unlikely a court of law would side with the MEA.
Is this the electricity cable or the fibre optic one?
This is the fibre optic that runs down the same trench, as it were.
And is now being lit up, and is quite a money spinner for the government.
They're now putting into place what I set up, absolutely.
Okay.
And there's a lot more they can do than they are doing currently, I can assure you.
Yes. Okay.
Now the next one was the Australia trip.
The fabled Australia trip.
The fabled Australia trip. Well, now, we talked about interconnecting the island to the UK with this electricity cable, which in itself was a very high standard piece of engineering and was looked at by lots of people from a professional and institutional point of view from England. Bringing natural gas to the island was innovative, and it meant that we not only cleaned up our emissions as an island, it meant that we had a firmer supply of electricity from a cheaper fuel. And we were then, from that day, avoiding the risk of oil spill on delivery or storage. Now, the British Energy Association thought that was all very good, and they asked me to come on to the executive committee, which I did. And for the World Energy Congress, the British Energy Association, whom is a member, asked me to present a paper at the World Energy Congress in Sydney, Australia. Now, this was not only a great honour for me personally, but it was a tremendous honour that was bestowed on the MEA to be a presenter at the biggest stage that the electricity industry has, which is the World Energy Council, which has this meeting once every 3 years. Now, I delivered the paper. I was one of the first up. The board of the MEA determined that I should fly first class. It's common practice at these conventions that spouses and partners go with them. I told them I intended to take my wife. I intended that she would sit next to me. If they didn't want to pay her ticket, I would pay it. However, the board thought that the occasion merited first-class travel, and there was a unanimous board vote in favour of the MEA paying it.
Did another board member go?
The chairman came, yeah, and the likes of Jersey Electric, Guernsey Electric, the chairman and the CEO always went to these. This was going on before I joined. The chairman and the CEO always went. There's a history of that. The Jersey and Guernsey chaps always took their wives. We never did. On this occasion, we did because we were on such a centre stage, and it was very well received, and sits today as a model for islands that are within proximity to mainlands to follow the MEA model as to how to secure a firm supply of electricity.
Of course, how this has been portrayed as something of a jolly.
Well, it's being portrayed as a jolly, but look, I'm not here criticising the film industry for going down to Cannes and boozing it up on luxury gin palace yachts. I mean, it's not my style to do that, and when they did it to me, I just thought, well, there you go. It's just another witch hunt. But the only thing I'd like to mention and reiterate is that it was fully approved by the board of the MEA and minuted as such. Right. So for the new board to bring those costs against me in a civil action is scurrilous and vexatious. And my QC advised that he had no difficulty defending me on that one either. Okay. Now the next were some running expenses, and these can be dealt with very quickly. Within the civil service, there are per diems for overnight stays, accommodation expenses, that sort of travel, that sort of thing. And I was never a civil servant. I never have been, I never will be, and I wasn't at the material time. I was contracted to the MEA under the terms of a written contract. Yes. And in that contract, it fully prescribes that when travelling on business, my expenses are recoverable from the MEA. Now, the expenses we're talking about were all again approved by the former board. And therefore, to pick out a few because the hotel's rate did not conform with the per diem is not appropriate action, particularly as this was normal course of business and the board had been approving these sort of expenses for 5 years. Yeah. So my QC advised that that was fully defendable. Next came an action against me because I had negotiated the departure of a senior member of the management team, who I think, for proprietary reasons, will leave his name out of it. Mm-hmm. And in that negotiation, there was compensation for early retirement, which the Treasury had agreed with on a previous occasion. This was fully lawyered by the MEA's law firm and properly documented. And for some odd reason, I found in the civil lawsuit, they brought these payments made to this individual against me for recovery, claiming I was acting ultra vires. And again, my QC advised that that was not an ultra vires act and would be easily defended.
What was your reaction when you received or first saw the High Court claim? Was it surprise, or were you actually anticipating something of the sort? I was outraged, because I knew it was
terrible waste of money, and I determined that all they wanted to do was force me into a position where I was wasting my money as well. Now, if I'm wasting my money, it's my personal money. Not one of those people wasted their personal money, they just wasted the MEA's money.
Yes.
And I find that behaviour, despicable.
Now, subsequently, you lodged a counterclaim, didn't you?
Yes.
There seems to be some disparity between the actual size of that claim.
While I was at the MEA, I had the benefit of the pension programme, and my deductions into that programme were something in the order of £30,000, £32,000, something like that. And I later found out that through some administrative mistake or action of some sort, that I didn't get into the pension programme. So at that point, those monies would be recoverable. So I claimed, without giving a number, I claimed the recovery of my pension salary deductions,
yes,
and any additional benefit that would accrue to my rights under that pension scheme.
Okay. And the figure you've got here is 90,000. The figure that
Yeah.
the Printing Guild told Tinwell last week was 190,000.
Well, I think the batteries in Mr. Quill's calculator might have been flat at the time he did that calculation. Let's look at it logically and simply. My deductions, my contribution was about 32,000, and that arises out of a 6% of salary contribution.
Yeah.
They have to match that with 7% of my salary contribution. Now, bonuses don't come into it, it's just base salary. So my 6% equaled 32,000, their 7% couldn't equal much more than 40, 45. As time goes on, there's a bit of interest, so maybe 50. So my 32 with interest, their 35 with interest, I said, well, claim 90. The true number's probably 75, 80, maybe.
Now, the sceptical might say that it would suit the MEA to inflate the size of the counterclaim to present the out-of-court settlement as a better deal for the taxpayer.
Well, I don't know where the taxpayer comes in. The better deal maybe for the electricity consumer, but certainly, however it's presented, the hard number is 32. That's my cash.
Yeah.
That has interest and maybe a matching 35, 40 with interest. So, as I say, I reckoned it might have been a claim that was worth 80 or 90 as far as I was concerned.
Okay. Now, obviously, you say you've done nothing wrong. So, why agree to pay any money back to the MEA?
I at first was very reluctant to do so, but all of my costs have been met by the insurance company. So I have not been paying out during this time. And I know that the legal costs have been mounting significantly throughout this process. So you very much get guided by the insurance company. They said, look, we think we can defend you. Your QC says it's defendable, but it's probably going to cost us another 100 grand just to defend you. So why shouldn't we just throw 30,000 at it and walk away?
Yes.
Now, when you're covered by an insurance company, the danger is if they say one thing and you disagree with it, and I say, no, I want you to fight on. If they pull the plug on you and you're left by yourself, I didn't want to pay those legal fees. So I said, look, if you want to settle, then we'll settle. Now, from my point of view, the whole thing has been a nuisance, and I'm glad it's gone away. And settlement in that regard, to me, was not a financial matter. as much as it was a time-consuming nuisance, and I wanted it to go away.
And it has repercussions on the current MEA as well, doesn't it? I think Quentin Gill talked about the reputational damage that all this has caused. So it's been in everybody's interest to put this to bed?
Well, I think these sort of things normally are. Whenever you have civil disputes, you have lots of sort of interpretation on both sides. And I think this had gone on for so long, and because the content, and you have to consider, the content of the civil suit was such that if these legal costs were to become public, I think the MEA were getting very close to a point where they might be a little embarrassed as to why they brought them and why they pushed them on so long, because they were not difficult to defend. There was no wrongdoing there.
Any idea of the scale of the legal costs borne by the MEA?
I've no idea of the MEA's costs. I don't even know how much my costs were, because my lawyer, Lawrence Keenan, and my QC, Christopher Boardman, sent all their invoices to the insurance company. I didn't even see them.